the Poetry Center, bringing poetry to Paterson since 1980 at Passaic County Community College.
My name is Maria Gillen, and I'm pleased to welcome you all here to the Distinguished Poets Series at Passaic County Community College. As many of you know, we have a series of readings that take place on Saturday mornings, and this semester we also tried to have some additional readings during the month on Friday evenings, just to see whether we could get a different group of people to come out for the readings, and so far they've been very successful, and we've had nice crowds at each of these readings, so we're very happy with that. The readings are made possible by a grant from the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, so I'd just like to mention them right away because otherwise I very easily could forget. We're very happy to welcome here today. I always tell the truth so it comes plopping out like you better watch out. Anyway, we're very pleased to welcome here today three wonderful poets, and whose names are Eileen Daly Muller, Karen Blomain, and Renee Ashley. And I'm particularly happy to have these three people read together because I'm familiar with the work of the three women, and I'm very excited about the kind of work that they do. And I think that together they're going to do a reading that will be very much unforgettable for you. Each of them is a very strong poet, and each of them, I think, represents what's wonderful about contemporary American poetry, particularly about what's exciting for me is particularly that they represent what's exciting about women's poetry today, and the kind of energy and vitality and risk-taking that's present in that poetry. And since it's National Women's Month, I thought I would get that in. We're always hearing about wonderful male poets, so I'm just going to say that I love women poets as well. Anyway, our first reader today is Renee Ashley, and Renee received several fellowships in poetry and fiction from the New Jersey State Council on the Arts. She won a 1989 Open Choice Award in Poetry from the Writer's Voice, West Side Y, New York City. She currently teaches creative writing in New Jersey and New York, and her work is forthcoming in the Kenyon Review, Greensboro Review, and other magazines. Let's welcome Renee Ashley.
Maria said I could go first because I'm so calm. I can't hold the water. I can't do anything. I'm going to read from two different manuscripts tonight. One I feel is like my good luck manuscript, and one's not my so good luck manuscript. But I wore my good luck skirt, and as I was leaving, I told my husband, you know, I'm going to be all right. I'm not going to be nervous. It's going to be all right. I wore my good luck skirt. And he said, isn't that the one you fell off the stage in New York City? And it is. And so I'm just going to read. The first manuscript I'm going to read from is the new work, the work I'm working on now. This is called Pressing the Body On. Nothing so simple as a single perfect cloud, but an infinitude, nightly, persistently, each pausing overhead, each in turn certain it defines the word cloud. And below me macadam, or stones, or shallow water, the endless ribbon passing beneath, indistinguishable from the furnace of my breathing, from the meticulous pumping of my heavy bones, the earth, black grass, and exquisite rubble, the consummate moon, pale and crisp. I am the one body moving. I dream of running, of endless dawn. My work's been getting longer and longer, so I'm warming you up with the short stuff. This is called How I Would Steal the Child. I have a friend that writes beautiful middle-aged poems about not having children and how sad it is, and I can't address it that directly. So I've got to go, you know, around the corner and get at it. How I would steal the child. From the darkness, from his native blindness, drag him into my world. Like a dream in a keen, necessary plan, penitent and anxious, bathe his limbs, his small head, feed him the starry milk, own him. Lash him to the rim of the grassy shore, listen to him breathe, study his closed eyes, see the wistful heart and the pulse at the narrow wrist. Slip him between the colors of night, the gradations of dawn, he will know nothing. Blank-eyed and needy, he will make himself known. I can save him, he must love me. I have been no place, done nothing. I am so ashamed. This next poem is longer, BW, and it's split into sections. And I've lost it. Okay, it's split into 4 parts, and each part has an epigraph, so I'll try and read that kind of straight and then go into the poem, but I'll tell you when the parts split. The poem is called The Velocity of Angels, and the epigraph to the first part is from Einstein. Physical concepts are free creations of the human mind and are not, however it may seem, uniquely determined by the external world. 1. My God, how fast she must have fled you, your only, your umbilical angel. How quickly her going must have passed, how the air must have parted, her light winking and she was gone. How you must have hated the idea of her. You can't complain, you know, about the heart, hers a fiery and weightless thing. Your body was a hindrance to you both, and when you genuflected at the crucifix of her luminous breastbone, did she undo you? Was the speed of her understanding more than your body could bear? Part 2 is from the Bishop of Cloyne. And what about these fluxions? May we not call them ghosts of departed quantities? No, your angels don't give you much time. Their hurriedness unhinges better men. You read her wrong, and now you miss the bright widow's peak, the vast white gold of her cleavage. The breadth of her sympathetic forehead was the bed you danced upon. On how many nights and how many incarnations did she come to you? You claimed her, you called her by name. Her fanciful light was a limitless moon, was the gathered radiance of countless individual stars, and you are ungrateful. Think hard now. You are the scapegrace of her dreams. Did you ever really own her? 3. The epigraph is from the Tao of Physics. It takes light 8 minutes to travel from the sun to the earth, and hence we see the sun at any moment as it existed 8 minutes ago. You never understood. Look over your head. The yellow star we dote on could be gone, the speed of discovery misleading. Factor in the distance. An incalculable infinity separates us all. She may, your expeditious angel, hover like a moon-faced doll. She may be soft and white, maybe as fleet as the crumbs of the universe spiraling outward, the whole in motion, continual, voracious, the unnamed space dissolving like sugar on your transient angel's tongue. You thought she lived to be your small, exuberant God, your a priori angel. When she abandoned you, she left silence as large as her light. 4. The epigraph is from Arthur Henry Reginald Bullard. There was a young lady named Bright, whose speed was far faster than light. She set out one day in a relative way and returned home the previous night. So you dream of speed, of your headlong prodigal angel. You seem to have no choice, but your body is a bane, entropy your body's friend, inertia the solace of your limbs. Hers is a solipsistic ether. She doesn't even know you. Her journey is breakneck. You stumble, even here on the low familiar ground, like the hoodwinked oaf you are, and you would argue the propinquity of angels. You are full of contradictions. If you must think of her heavenward and wearing white. See her trembling and brilliant in the tail of a single star that plummets outside your pitiful finite boundaries. Your cumbersome body, that minor eclipse, was her single bright heresy. Render her your absolute angel. Nothing about her is constant but her speed. You must see it. Velocity is her catechism. Listen, she's your photon, your quantum of deliberate light. The other manuscript is a much more earthbound manuscript, EW. And what I found when I was working on this first manuscript is that when I began writing, my vision was much smaller. My memories were concise memories, and they got larger as I went along. Excuse me. I also figured out that I remember houses by the name of the street they were on. You know, I lived on Hillview, I lived on Warrington. Those are houses in my mind. And this is called Warrington Avenue. Rita's house was yellow tin and small, east of ours and closer to the corner store, the penny candy, the bar, and the place lost dogs hung out. And by the westbound highway, Cristofani built a white stucco mastodon of a house with black bars on the windows, red sills, tile roof, and granite steps like a bridge of sighs to the red double-thick door no piss-assed young punk would dare kick in. Our lot on Warrington was ludicrously large for a city mother, my mover-on father, half a fertile acre caught between the junkyard and the wrecker. And right across the road, from the tar-patched road, from Crazy McCroy, his lean-to shack, and the fat plumber in a duplex who kept young girls. Out of the flat brown dirt behind our house, lettuce grew, and apricots, and the mud got shin-deep, and the waist-high weeds were full of bugs, and out past my father's 4 stew rabbits, around my mother's tin-voiced chickens, was the junkyard, and the wrecking yard, and the mean brown dog called Bots, who on my mother's oath could peck like a bird the eyes from a child who got too near the fence. A heavy-gauged insinuation, crowned by barbed wire, and taller than me by 7 heads. They made me swear I would not touch that fence, but of course, every chance I got, I did. And the oily men behind the rusted cars in overalls like greasy bags, and skinny peg jean boys digging through the open maws of decomposing Studebakers, Nashes with the seats laid back, and Pontiacs for parts would say, "Hey, girly, girly, watch your fingers in the wire," and "Where's your mother, honey? Where's your mother?" And the mean brown dog would wag his tail, and for as long as I would stand and watch for each one who said shit, or watch who you're fucking with, you stupid son of a bitch, another would go shh and point his black or blackened finger at me, looking through and holding on the eyes and mouth of that relentless fence. The poem I'd like to read next is a long poem, and I promise I'll finish with it. Again, God Was Good. It's in parts. It's in 6 parts and hopefully 6 different voices. And what it is, it's the same area that Warrington was. But I think the vision got a little bigger once I got out here and started thinking back to the area. It only has 1 epigraph. The title of the poem is called Salt. And the epigraph is, the San Francisco Bay region is one of the few areas in the world where salt is commercially recovered from brine by solar evaporation. The bay itself provides the brine, and the mild climate provides favorable atmospheric conditions. And it's from my favorite source in the world, the dedication program to the wind-powered Archimedes screw pump for the American Society of Mechanical Engineers and the Leslie Salt Company. Part 1. Whiter even than the skin of pale breasts, the salt pyramids pressed against the bluest sky, always at the edge of the city and invisible as your hand or your foot, the blindness that familiarity breeds, the way joy breeds joy or ignorance surprise. Rising in the midst of the fish boats, the pleasure boats, the harbors like rings on the fingers of the land, salt towers like an eastern ridge, inevitable, invisible salt. 2. Everything was sex or engines. If you were fast, if you had the drive, that was the place to go. Evaporation heaven, ponds like furrowed acres, the crust, the salt, crisp as beach sand, crisper even. No one I knew ever touched foot to pond. The story was like this. The brine shrimp would rush with their numberless tongues, burrow in your skin, countless infinitesimal wounds laying your secret-most particles open to salt. You could die from the pain. But back by the scaffold like loaders where the earth held firm, out by the cranes and the carriers, the salt railroad tripped along the shallow edges, and there your car would careen, stuffed to bursting with adolescent flesh, an hour to kill with the view and a taste for hot skin. Never a plain horizon. You faced the mountain or the salt. The cock in your hand beat like a heart. You learned to make it in long, husky Chevys. Out there by the docks, beside the ponds, you watched the salt like a sunset, watched the pools change color while the daylight bled away, while the sun lingered in the opposite mountains, blue ponds, red ponds, 1,000 opalescent shades in between, and when the sun set, the billion stars tumbled onto the surface, stars white as salt, far out in the wide-open bay. 3. The pilot on the bridge of the deep-water freighter spotted Gavin Mickle's father dead against the salt. A rag of a man, even when alive at 42 and drying on the mound, they said he seemed old as the sun. Everyone figured him gone on a bender. No one thought to look. For 2 days he lay, leather burning in the salt. For 15 years he'd run track at the plant, a brittle man with a pregnant wife, and Gavin, his eldest, took after his dad, half his father's dying age, his head shot off in Vietnam. Here's how it started. The tight-assed young foreman, new to the ponds and a deacon at the white man's church, canned Gavin's father in a rage against the drink. It wasn't true that day, but when the last shift ended, Mickle took himself up in the bucket scaffold rig, laid himself upright on the wall that was salt, and the bullet took his brain deep into the mound. Gavin took his father's job, and when the army took him, he was glad. He said it was the cycle of the Irish, of the young, of the salt. That's how it happened. 4. You go because of the mayor. You believe that. 5th grade, 6th grade, you walk the long way round, 8 blocks to the Negro grocery where in good weather you gingerly step over the owner's blind wife. She sits in a chair on the sidewalk, her legs like dry stalks, her hair the color of dry red peppers. You are convinced she knows the future. 3 more blocks and you pass the busted gas pumps where the boys hang out. Another block and you will see her, the gray-white mare on Elm, the docile horse behind the white rail fence, beside the stark white house with unbroken glass in the center of its wooden door, the house with the shining upstairs windows, with the 4 great columns thicker than men that rise invulnerable over the stairs you have never seen anyone climb. You save your apples. You don't like them anyway, and you go. You walk off by yourself. You are always by yourself. You drag your school bag over the cracks in the gray cement where the earth has risen. You drag it over the coarse ropes of wild grass that rise between the irregular squares. The sound is like someone following. The hem of your skirt is uneven. Your shoes are thick and clumsy. Your hair is lank. You are as pale as poor light. You are better off with horses. So you go all that way to touch the great lean ears of the gray-white mare, to feel the thick down of her cavernous nostrils, and it catches your eye every time it goads you like a sun, salt stone, salt cake like a shoebox, lick heavy as a cinder block, salt carelessly thrown in the high-tufted grass by the squat-legged bathtub filled with water for the mare. You give her your apple. Her lips are thick and soft, careful. Her bone teeth are the most powerful thing you know. You linger at the fence, one eye on the glass of the blinding windows, the other on the eye of the mare, a dark and seemingly endless eye, vast as you imagine the vastness of infinity. You leave your books behind. You hang one leg, lop it over the white rung and duck in quickly. With your small hands you press the bellow sides of the solid, lonesome horse and move in. Bend low, your ridiculous skirt climbing the backs of your legs. You rest, crouched beneath the overwhelming belly of the gentle mare. You touch your tongue to the salt. Excuse me. 5. Okay, I'll tell the truth. It was never a stranger. Julio Martin broke down that door. It wasn't the first time I thought my life was over. A rolling drunk, wet, sloppy at the mouth, wild and blind at the same time, his dark eyes dull as tobacco, his slick skin like dark wood. Distortion rode him like an animal, anger like a skin on his body. He took my long hair. It was nothing in his hand, came loose in his fist. He tore my eye. The first time he saw he could hurt me, he said, "She deserves it. She begs for it. God, she is not a good girl. She's bad. She's poison." And he knew I would never tell. He left slowly. He smiled. The moon-faced son of a bitch, my brother, and left only his dark, sour smell behind. That last time I had the gun. Our own mother gave me the oily gun, but before I could get to it, he had me on the fresh-made bed, had me on my narrow white sheets. His long barrel body covered mine like a skin. But I am the daughter of Cornelia Martin, daughter of Juan, and God showed him a sister's got a right. Lena Rosamond has a right. His eyes turned up before he could get it in. He dropped in the swamp of his sweat. Something went wrong in his brain, blew the slippery cells apart. His body was like no weight I could explain, like a full barrel gone soft. Above me he sighed himself empty like a death-throw dog, spilt the bitter piss like a foul, shallow bay, like a low-tide bay. I could smell the shit. I breathed the salt sweat, the salt spit. This time it was my freedom. They burned him in South City where our father was burned, and Mama put his ashes on the window ledge. I leave the window open. I still keep the gun. 6. She has studied the man in the moon, knows his rampant features through the braille of light and dark. She knows his name. She is mute, her bones the bones of small night animals, and she does not know how she came there. But from where she stands on the mountain, her face is clear, his need plain. She is the moon's old servant, Gray woman as mad as the tides. The sea boils, she can smell it, rising, invisible in the west, pungent as pepper. The wind braids her hair, she is not conscious of the cold. Planted on the stone, she faces the ludicrous moon. When her body fails, when in her weakness she turns east where the warm lights burn, scattered like asters below her, she sees the salt. Small mounds in that distance, blue in the lessening light. The moon behind her, she believes she can hear the wheeze of the trolley. She believes the scaffold lights flicker, eclipsed and then passed by, and she does not know how she comes to know such a far-off place. The moon at her narrow back, and still as the mountain beneath her, she hums softly to the glistening edge of her faint earth. Thank you.